Small fingers now. Checking fingers.
I guess so.
Okay, are we ready to start?
We're ready to start.
All right, so we are finally getting this meeting underway at 11:09, according to my watch. And first thing after the call to order is the ferry landing project. So take it away, Ann.
Jumping right in. Without interruption. Wow, all right. Sorry, I might need a minute to
Get yourself organized.
I apologize in advance. I got some wasp stings last night, and it was just annoying last night, and now it's starting to make me feel really tired and crappy. So just to sort of run through the update that I provided in July quickly and bring people up to speed will probably be the easiest way to get rolling, and then we can talk about the meat of the matters. So I believe I sent out or gave Greg the contract from All Habitat Services for Phragmites removal of they proposed a 4-year approach to the pond, the 4th year being as needed only. And the total of the full 4 years was nearly $40,000, which includes permits and other legal requirements, some of which we could assume ourselves. I don't know how much of a cost savings that would be. But the main issue, of course, with their approach to Phragmites management is that it involves herbicide. So we need to hopefully reunite our herbicide task force, or whatever we're calling ourselves. And I know that, Fred, you're very, obligated in a number of directions. So, we could hopefully figure out what the best steps forward for that group would be. It was you, me, Claudio, and Mike. Were you on that as well? No? Oh, it was
Peter Cable.
Peter Cable was joining in, I think. Yeah. So, the bottom line is that there's plenty of data and plenty of reputable organizations that are using the particular herbicides that are commonly used and would be used by this organization if we went with them. The state uses it, and so problem is we have a policy on the books of no herbicide, and if we're going to change that, what are the steps involved there? Do we, as a commission, we meet and decide change or no change? If we decide to change that policy, does it then have to go through any other forms of approval?
I thought that we had already made some adjustment to the original, as Peter and I talked about this after the vote on not using any herbicides, and so then I provided Peter with the policy statement from the Nature Conservancy, which I've been involved with for a long time.
How long ago was this?
This was 2 years.
Oh, okay. Now, see, I remember we discussed it.
And I thought we came up with the idea that it would be on an as-needed basis, but no broadcast spraying. That we would be able to use herbicides on an as-needed basis by painting or dripping on cut surfaces.
I think I remember the discussion on it. I have a handbook on policies and things like that, and the one book I didn't bring. Let me check in that. But I know that we discussed, and I thought Peter was going to get back. Do you remember?
Can I just interrupt
Sure.
for a second? I know if anybody can get onto the website and see what the policy is, because the latest policy would be on there. It was my recollection that we talked about modifying, but I'm not sure that we actually.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
The handbook or whatever, the last version of our plan says no herbicide use.
Okay.
Yeah, see.
That has to be rectified.
Because I think Peter came forward in one of the meetings after talking to Claudio and brought it up, and he thinks
brought it up, and then Claudio or somebody had some questions, and then we.
And they were going to research it, those two, and then.
And then we.
I know what the password is for the Wi-Fi.
Is it public? Is it over there? I thought there was a.
It used to be on the table.
Yeah, it is on the table somewhere.
This is for the phone. I don't know where else it could be. Oh, thank you.
Right over there. No, right over there on the green thing. Wi-Fi? Got it? No?
But we can look into that. I think we're amenable to that.
Old I-18,
There it is. Thank you.
I think we'd have to bring it up at our September meeting, but that's something.
Yeah. But
The one thought I had, Devin, too, is, I know I'm for very judicious use of any herbicides, but when you're talking about a whole strand of Phragmites, painting it might just be.
No, I think, that Phragmites is maybe the exception because.
Well, that's the thing. This proposal is specifically
for,
broadcast approach. So.
I know that that Rich Snarsky, a registered soil scientist, has been treating Phragmites in Lord's Cove for several years by a combination of cutting and then some broadcast spraying. I was just on a Zoom call yesterday with Doug Tallamy from the University of Delaware, who's a biologist and botanist, and he was talking about treating invasives on his own property, and they tried pulling things up and clipping and so forth, but that was going to be a forever project. So he said there was no other way to do it that
Did he broadcast or did he paint?
I think he painted.
Right.
But it was for other. It wasn't Phragmites. It was an upland piece,
right.
And so. But I know that the state uses it, and All Habitat uses it.
And the state uses it.
Well, for Rich Snarsky, I'm a little familiar with that as well because Gateway partially supported him, and he got basically approval, and they funded his project knowing what his methods were. He got funding from both DEEP and from Fish and Wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he get TNC too?
I think he did.
I think he did.
I think he did.
Well, the state and TNC did the Lieutenant River project quite a number of years ago, and that was done.
So the website just says on town open space land, notwithstanding limited circumstances, we approve the following. Town of Old Lyme Open Space Commission will not allow the use of glyphosate on any parcel of open space land. The Open Space Commission will formulate an environmentally responsible herbicide use policy. The Open Space Commission will establish an ad hoc committee to address open space property ecology top-down, with consideration given to alternative invasive control methods, including but not limited to biological control and pond water management, tidal flow restoration.
Well, for the Ferry Road project, I can't see the pond water level management is going to work
No.
because there's no tidal influence.
And the water level issue is the Phragmites.
Yeah, right, because it's drying
The water
the place
level going
out.
down?
Yeah, the Phragmites dries it out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
The drought does that too.
drought isn't helping, right?
Well, and it just creates like a mass as opposed to
Yeah.
area for water flow. But, so, we would need to, come to, some assemblage of members would have to meet and create a proposal for the rest of the commission to consider and vote on. Is that the right
Mm-hmm.
next step?
Probably, and if the all habitat had a specific, their proposal could go into more detail, saying what they are spraying and what, and when and how often. So then we could approve it, I think like that says, on a case by case. But in this case, I think you'd also, we'd have to do a presentation or notify at least the property owners. And so,
We have to notify them,
Anyway.
as part of the permitting process.
Right.
right, but we wouldn't want to say, hey, we're doing this.
No.
I would say, hey, we're thinking it, let's have a discussion, and maybe Rich Narsky would be willing to come to our,
Well,
Just
their
as a-
proposal should have frequency and
It does.
stuff on there already.
It does. It goes into fairly good detail, and, I'm sure they'd be happy to provide more.
Yeah.
But I think, if we're anticipating any kind of pushback from public opinion, we might want to, I don't know, think about how to, address that proactively as opposed to, going ahead and authorizing.
Oh, no.
definitely.
Obviously.
Yeah, we're not going to go ahead without, especially that neighborhood.
I
Yeah.
have a quick question, and are there any time constraints considering what would be the optimal time to treat, plus also what would your grant call for? So-
Right. Well, the grant did not specifically, it mentioned our approach as including,
No, I
it
mean, you
didn't
have to
say,
spend money within the next period of time.
well, the grant was not predicated on addressing the Phragmites in the first year. It was predicated on our 5-year plan and, phased in implementation.
How much was the grant for again?
Almost
70.
10,000?
Almost
9,000 something.
10,000, and then there's 7,000 from the town.
Right.
And the bid was 50.
Oh,
40.
39.
4 years.
39
We
and
might not
change.
need the 4th year, so. But,
What's the likelihood we're going to get the funding to do this? In terms of, is this a battle we want to fight?
well, I mean, I think it's an existential question, quite honestly. We can either watch the pond go away, or we can do something about it.
I mean,
It still begs the question, where are we going to get the funding for this?
it may be worthwhile approaching the neighbors, especially those who front the pond.
Oh,
I know there are some who
that's interesting.
would be motivated.
That's what they did in Lord's Cove. They
But
went
they
around to
started that.
all of the people who front on Lord's Cove, Old Lyme up to Lyme, and they asked for donations.
Oh,
For
that's great.
And that's what's what funded, I don't know how much it funded, or whether there were other grants.
They asked originally 10,000 per
Yeah.
property owner.
Yeah.
I don't know if they got 10,000, but that's what, and not that ours would be.
Do we have
Yeah.
anything in our budget, Amanda, for this?
It depends. Well, because we have some carryover now, but we're looking at Bartholomew, and I would like to finish up with the Barbizon Oak and those signs, and that one of those was a fence. So we don't have any carryover at that point, I don't think, but we will have money in this budget for some of that, depending, I mean, you never know what the budget is. A dozen trees fall, and you've got to get them removed.
Mhm.
That's the big thing. So I would be a little cautious until we're halfway through the year and seeing how things, but I don't really see any big expenditures this year.
Well, so getting back to the timing question, you know, ideally, they would begin this program now, and into the fall.
Yeah,
if
into
needed.
September.
But they're not gonna there's no time, obviously, you're not ready. There's also a permitting delay, like you wouldn't believe, at the state level. And,
So
we're
we'd be
talking
looking
about
at next year doing it.
So
You'd have to start it now for it to begin next year, in other words, to kind of
Well,
plan it. I mean,
you could, and I did ask, you know, so I think they're enumerated in the proposal. I think it's 2 sprayings, fall and spring essentially. But the spraying has to be timed, you know, to avoid the nesting season.
I guess my question is, I'm sure it's been answered somewhere, I apologize for not knowing this, but does the spray have to be administered when the plant is actively growing? Like, if it goes dormant and dries out, is it too late? And then
That's a great question.
I think from what I've read and heard and is that the preferred method is an initial mowing, and then when the new sprouts come up in late summer, early fall, when the plants are beginning to take all of their nutrients and sugars and so forth back into the root system prior to winter, that's when you want to do it. So it takes whatever you spray on the Phragmites takes into the root system, it kills the root mass.
It says June, July for Phragmite early season treatment.
Right.
So if we did the Phragmite mowing, which we don't need any permitting, we already have an outstanding permit upstairs, that would be $6,150. That would be a hit this year. And I guess my question would be, we do have the $2,000 from the town, and of your budget, how much could you spare for the Phragmite? And then we could look at our own budget and then go forward in the winter to the Board of Selectmen and say, the $2,000 you gave us, we spent, and here is, you know, going forward. That would give us time.
Yeah. But we're not going to be doing any treatment this year.
No, but that's what I mean, but we could, if we could do just the mowing.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure we could mow. I mean, the marsh master can't get in there, so last I heard.
Their mowing is going to be getting out either in waders or in a boat and hand cutting what they can get to, which, you know, who knows how much they can get to.
So it's going to be the same situation that Malcolm had, whatever they can get to.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that they have more wherewithal than Malcolm in terms of manpower and availability and equipment, and so I think they could, you know, Malcolm was really only able to get to a
small
very small portion.
and he cut that little island in, yeah. And one of the questions was if they could get access down one of the properties, so if you were having a meeting with
Well,
them.
Malcolm was interested in that, and
But wouldn't they all have you also?
they, you know, they seem to think that accessing from state property would be sufficient.
Would the state let them?
Yes, I was
In
talking-
writing, we have something?
We don't have anything in writing, but, you know, the staff person I've been talking to about who sort of authorized the path mowing to the upland area, said he didn't have a problem with that. And actually, the next conversation there is if we're going to be doing this. And they said, actually, I have to circle back with them now that I'm thinking about it. Roger Wolf said that his group would be mowing in that Shippey Pond end this year. In fact, I think theoretically in July, but then we got this heat wave, so...
Mowing the grass?
No.
Or mowing the Phragmite?
Grass.
Oh, they were going to mow the Phragmite. Huh.
So
I would like to confirm in writing with them that we're,
Well, I did ask about, like,
yeah, for our tail, I don't want to...
how much access related stuff needed to be going through at what levels.
Do they have a vendor or they have their own crew?
They use All Habitat, so. But Roger was going to use his own crew to do such a small area. That should be fine. So, I mean, I love the idea of, approving on an ad hoc or as needed basis. I don't know that that's really what it says, currently. So we would have
Well,
to
I think we can
amend
at
what's
the
on
next
website.
at the next meeting. I think we could make that recommendation part of the record.
On a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
All right.
And then attach the proposal, so when we go, what we approve, so we know
Yeah.
what's...
Because I remember Phragmites control being an issue. I was on the board of the Nature Conservancy, and there were chapters all over the United States that had tried different methods, including flooding with salt water. I think somebody in Massachusetts tried dynamite, and that didn't work.
Okay.
It just
That doesn't disrupt the gardens at all.
Yeah, really.
It just blew it into pieces and spread it all over the
Oh my
place.
God.
I remember, I went to a number of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I attended virtually a seminar on invasives, and one of the workshops was on Phragmites, and they had a guy from Massachusetts, and he said the most effective method, it's almost like dynamite, is basically dig up the entire area to like 5 feet deep and then bring in new soil.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But what's Audubon's? Because I know I've read in some of their literature, and they have a Phragmites situation at their place.
But I think they may have hired or are talking to Rich.
Really? Because then it's probably just mowing.
Well, Rich has a 2-stage system, mowing in June or July, and then in late August, early September, whatever comes up after the mowing, which is Phragmites is a grass, so it's going to come up, maybe not quite as robustly as it was, but anything that comes up, then you spray it, broadcast spray it, and that hopefully kills it. But I think you may have to do it over a period of years, similar to what All Habitat is talking about.
Have you talked to Rich lately?
No.
Because he has, about 2 years ago, came to Gateway for another grant might have been hydrilla. So it was another invasive project. But at that time, he stated that he had, quote, eradicated the Phragmites.
Well, that may be a little overstated.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of wondering if...
Well, no, my wife and I kayaked up there earlier this summer in that Lord's Cove area. It's impressive. I mean, there was not much Phragmites. And it's a huge area, a lot of little islands and things like that, so we didn't see it all, but there was a lot of natural vegetation. It was impressive.
The other flip side of his project was that he was supposed to be planting native species that could compete.
Well, that's critical. Yeah, that's another thing.
So would you think about asking Snarsky for an estimate, or is it not? I mean, I don't
see why not.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good idea.
then I would certainly like to see what Audubon is doing, because the more facts that we can present to the neighbors and to the town to justify this.
I also think that Rich got some of his funding from the Community Foundation for that project.
The other thing I would mention, Amanda,
Just
is that...
because he was one of the evaluators with me, and
I
also, I think, submitted.
I'm not sure how they got involved because it wasn't their land, but he involved Fish and Wildlife Service, and it was their machine that did the mowing, their, whatever they called their...
Marshmaster.
Marshmaster. Yeah. They used their Marshmaster. And maybe we could touch base with Fish and Wildlife, if he's got a contact, or I have a contact.
Well, I mean, the pond is within the Conti refuge system. So it's,
Yeah, I'm not sure if Lord's Cove is in the Whalebone Cove CSA, and we have Roger Tor and Peterson in town, but
It's in the new estuary reserve system.
yeah.
yeah, I think the closest piece of Fish and Wildlife Service land to Lord's Cove is the old Peterson property and the top end of Lieutenant River.
So are there other opportunities for quotes?
Saunders Hollow, isn't there? The Peterson was
Potentially,
Saunders Hollow.
yeah. I actually had reached out to another environmental services group that never got back to me, so I can try them again. But
And Snorsky might be an option as well.
right.
I think, you know,
Another option is that, again, I know this from Gateway, is that we had a number of people coming to us looking to kind of replicate what Rich Snarsky did in other towns, and we kind of said no, because there's a new state program that's partially funded by boat fees to provide grants. That might be something to look into too. Are you
Provided
familiar with
no. What was the name of the organization?
I'll find it out and get it to you.
Okay. But in terms of the funding question, I don't know. I mean, we don't have any that's ID'd specifically for Phragmites in either the grant budget or our current funding. But I wonder, for instance, how the Rogers Lake Authority is getting funding for their invasive management. Is that something that
I can find that out.
ID is
For-
part of their
this is for-
annual
probably
budget?
they have an association.
For which organization?
Rogers Lake.
Okay.
They get
Lake.
town funding, do they not?
I don't know.
They have an association up there.
I thought there was an authority,
There is.
a town.
The Rogers Lake Authority, yeah.
Yeah. They use, I don't know where they the treatment of, what was it that
There you
they,
go.
That grass on
in
there.
the water column.
So that is actually, the Rogers Lake Authority is a patrol boat.
But-
He's not here now, but I know
Oh,
that Gary
hang on.
worked with
There's
Maureen
something
Plumley
here.
in conservation.
I do work for the Rogers Lake Authority attorney.
Okay.
So I'll just ask him.
Yeah.
Well, it says Rogers herbicide treatment. Rogers Lake will have a herbicide treatment for the aquatic invasive weeds identified by the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station on Thursday, June 23rd. The pond and lake connection will be performing the treatment per permit, and it gives the permit number. The only restriction with the treatment is that the water should not be used for irrigation from June 23 through June 30th. Science will also be posted.
Does it say who's in the Rogers Lake Authority, who the members are?
Well, isn't
Dennis Overby is the chairperson, Dennis Overby, I think.
I don't see it. Yeah. I know you can find it here.
That's right. So Phragmites is one part of the project, and you did not include that in your grant for Phragmites removal. So in your grant was mostly focused on the parcel that we own in Upland and the removal of the invasives. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where all that money was.
So, yeah, actually circling back to the connection with Shippey Pond, which is state-owned,
Right.
we all agree that it's, kind of essential for the state to be doing their end. And so that would be part of the conversation with them, to coordinate so that, because otherwise, it's a losing battle from the get-go.
You had talked about, at some point, they'd cut that.
I can find out.
And then you were, I think, asking and I wasn't sure, and thank you again for the interns that came, they were very nice. They were going to do some, is the upland not affecting the wetlands, clearing in there of Tree of Heaven, you listed a number of invasives there. You're going to wait till fall to do that? Were you going to have someone else? Or?
No, the idea was, well, it's going to be fall any minute now, you know. I mean, we really got slammed with the heat, so.
It's too hot to work outside, but I mean, is that the next step you're going?
Right. I mean, the whole project got kind of shoved back for a number of reasons. Some of, there were other things dominating the conversation for the commission, and then the interns didn't materialize until July. So, yeah.
And they're available this fall? Or are they in school? Or?
They are available, and they are in school.
I think they're. I think we're due for some cooler weather the next week or two.
Yeah, by this weekend it's supposed to break.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some low 50s in Vermont for this weekend. So.
Plattsburgh was 95 yesterday on Lake Champlain.
Oh, yeah, I have a friend in Charlotte he's
Haley did
sitting
the
in his
Stowe
air
Jazz Festival over grills.
The clearing and any work parties that can coordinate with the interns, maybe DIVA, which is a open-ended question. There is the environmental club, and school starts at the end of August, just FYI here, and we're going to want to hit the ground running with the environmental club and present to them.
So I think that would be a perfect I don't know of anything else.
Well,
what if anything needs to be redone on Champlain North behind if that I haven't been back there to see what's regrown after all the cutting and.
Is that yellow trail? Is it the yellow trail?
Yellow trail.
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that they could be available, whether it's Champlain, because Heather likes that because it's also the close proximity. People
Right.
are familiar with it. They have a history. And just that for Ann's benefit, that they are available to do that, but we would still need the access to and kind of directed focus of a certain plot, which...
Right. Well, so I had been talking with Amanda about getting Wayne to do some tree work, just strategically, so that, and with the idea that it could even be work that's, trees that are cut and left just on the ground, so there's not like a big removal.
Yeah, and you want some what's called coarse woody debris on the ground.
Right. So I don't know if he can get a chipper in there, which could again.
Well, the other way to do it is to girdle the trees with a chainsaw. And then apply by paintbrush the herbicide.
Right. Well, for now, I think.
You understand? Everybody not understand what girdling is? Okay, good.
But for the short term, so sort of for the idea that we might, first of all, be able to deploy some other manpower, the environmental club, for example, and actually get an area cleared with the idea of possibly planting a few things in, say, early November.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to do, sorry for interrupting, is when we start this, is to have some little sign and tell the public what we're doing, because they go down there all the time. But I think one thought with Wayne, and you met Wayne at the Midsummer, and have his text, maybe get him in with your direction or with, marking what we want out with the little pink survey tape. Him taking, putting it all down on the ground, and then the environmental club could load it in a truck. Wayne doesn't have a truck anymore, but Jim has a dump truck, and then we could just take it one fell swoop to the dump. And so that way there's not a chainsaw going with lots of people out there.
Yeah.
And Wayne can go in there with a chainsaw and just, you know.
Peter does chainsaw work as well. I mean, he could help Wayne.
Yeah, and there's some, I mean,
Right.
he could be cutting the big, there's some big
Yeah.
pines.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and then they could haul it all out. And
Why not leave the brush there and just let it decay
Yeah.
over the years? You know, you could do that too.
If we're not
I
gonna,
mean, this is a lot of work to get in there and clear that stuff, and
yeah,
just going and cutting it, you know, it's gonna resprout.
That's why I was
Have to-
thinking to
Then
get it,
I need herbicides, I don't know, but
but it
stuff
starts,
comes back with a vengeance, and I've brush cut fields for many years, and it's a real pain.
I have a brush hog too.
Yeah.
I would just, well, I don't know, you gotta start somewhere with,
But you wanna make sure your efforts pay off, and so I have some concerns about that.
Well, I think the idea was
So-
I'm fine.
to create a pilot area that we could contain and manage and go from there, you know? Rather than spreading ourselves thin all over close to an acre, maybe a little more than an acre, to really designate an area. And we can't even do that until we can make some headway into the
Yeah.
undergrowth.
I kind of like Fred's idea, though. You know, it is a lot of work to haul everything out. We're not looking for human traffic in there, so the safety issues aren't as germane as when we have a trail with a dead tree hanging over it. And Evan, you've always talked about how much life there is in dead wood and trees.
Oh,
and that
yeah.
sort of
There's a
stuff.
recycling element to that.
yeah.
I think the use of the club personally would be better served if they're out there cutting and clipping and making a 2x3 or whatever the size of the path is from here to there, like we have in the past.
Yeah.
Well, that's the idea, is that if we can, you know, now that we can get to the property line, if Wayne can go in there and take down some of the bigger trees that are kind of acting as clothesline posts, for lack of a better word, for all of the vines and stuff. If those trees, I would think the ones that I'm talking about that are covered with vines, if they came down as opposed to being girdled and left in place, then you can get in there, you know, cut away,
Yeah.
and then you can bring in folks to help actually make that way manageable
Right.
by clearing it.
Maybe it would be appropriate not to, when we review the herbicide policy, not only to talk about aquatic, but, you know, if you have a vine, cut around it and paint, you know, use limited herbicide for that,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you cut these trees down, you're going to create a disturbed environment of sorts,
Yeah.
and invasives tend to do very well.
Or natives,
Yeah.
natives can spring up
Well,
there too, though.
that's true, but you have a lot of invasives nearby.
You have
No,
all
I'm just,
nearby, I think. I mean, have you found any natives in there? I was just
They're in the
curious.
seed bank, there's no question about it, you know, and, you know, again, our hope is to introduce some as well, and, you know, it's ultimately, it could be years and years and years before we clean up the entire parcel, but.
I think you're looking at a 10-year project.
Right, but if we have a sort of 3 to 5 year goal of maintaining a designated area, it can slowly mushroom out.
Right.
That's,
Exactly.
that's,
Yeah.
I think, a realistic approach.
Yeah.
and if you pile the brush up, that can also suppress some growth
Yep.
too, you know.
Well, and
to let them-
chipping it too. If we can get a chipper in there, and that suppresses
Yeah.
it for sure.
Well, we do, as I said, we do have, I think, $2,000. I can't remember what it was, 2020. So we could rent a chipper if we had all, it's just,
Town not
But how do you
running
get the
chippers?
chipper down into that? I mean, part of the topography is part of the problem there.
Well, you can get right in there now.
Can you?
Yep. The only thing that has to come down is, there is and it's not barbed wire, but a wire fence.
Oh. Is that a
it-
property boundary?
It must have been at one time. And it's in bad condition, but it's in the way.
Yeah.
And so you just need some, you know,
Clippers.
snips and
Yeah.
get that to the side, and you could definitely get equipment in there now.
So you brought up goats at one point, is that possible at this point or not? The goats?
Yeah. I
It's
think
expensive, I think, right, is the problem.
it's very expensive. I'd have to look back exactly how much it was going to cost. But I think, you know, if we got sort of some reasonable area accessible, then using goats at that point would definitely be worth revisiting.
Okay.
You know, could be great actually.
So you're actually just thinking now that we have a pathway from Shippey Pond is going and targeting a specific area, like almost like a test site.
Exactly. And, you know, there's a slope there, so I guess the idea would really be to try and identify a spot that seems, you know, the most conducive to potentially introducing planting, so someplace that's not like on a super steep slope, someplace that's not too close to the wetland setback. So just find a little sweet spot in there where, you know, there's various natural topography, you know, conditions that are more favorable than others.
So do you think more towards the front of the property or the roadway? No idea, so we just have to
The
wait.
front is pretty steep, so I think it'll be somewhere in the middle to get it far enough away from the wetlands. Yeah.
Well, we'll need probably a wetland permit to work within, to do any cutting within the 100-foot
Right, which I don't
setback.
want us to start by doing any cutting in the
Yeah,
setback. So we just have to know where the setback is.
right. Well, the
Well,
Well,
setback,
cutting, what
100
about
feet.
Wayne coming in?
So, but it's 100 feet from where, is the thing.
yeah.
You know, do we need soil scientists to come and do that? Is there a map?
There's a subdivision map.
Uh-huh.
Which I happen to have.
Nobody happens to have a colored marker, do they? What's that?
I have a blue pen.
Well,
No, I was thinking of,
inland
I can see if I
wetland.
can get one.
You want like a highlighter?
yeah, like a highlighter, but yellow or green.
I could ask.
I'm not sure I want to mark my own. So here's the pond area right here.
Here's the 100-foot. Here's the 100-foot.
Is this,
Right. This is the state land. This is
Looking at that end.
that's the new street line.
Michelle
Yeah, I'm
was-
just trying to
Michelle
figure
Norris
out, here's the
today,
wetland.
So
So
I
I
would
was
just
trying to
edit
figure out.
everything in the
I already
this is
did
the
it.
setback,
Send it
right?
to her?
And
Okay.
I got,
Edge of pond, I'm trying to.
so she's got everything.
Right.
Good.
See,
Thank you.
here's the 100-foot wetland, so it's right here,
It was painful.
here,
Yeah.
here, here.
I feel like it doesn't say
So
anything
this
anymore.
is the
Well, again, you know, if you
this
want
is the lot that
together
we just
Well,
cleared.
so
more
that's
that we
another
can-
And
thing
this
that
is
I really
base.
feel like we need
This
to
is-
all agree is that
So
the website
this,
needs to make.
may I?
Oh, you got something underneath, so hold on, Evan.
Here you go.
Yeah.
I got it.
Okay.
No, but I actually need to email Gary Novak because apparently he emailed, was it you that responded to him?
There was a,
It doesn't
we
leave
got
much
thrown a
space
curve with
outside.
But, so here's
basic email.
Shippey,
Okay.
That the,
and I think where
for
she
internet
ends
insurance
with that
purposes,
thing
the town
is
wants
up
a
here.
two-step authentication, which
The-
means
you know, the
every time
passageway.
you log
Yeah.
on, they text you a
Well,
code.
this was cleared
and
by
You just
by
can't do
Angus
that with
McDonald and
a
Gary
lot of
Sharp.
people.
I mean,
So I
they
told
Yeah.
they cleared
I
this
would check the
this
mail, and if anything
property
comes down, I
boundary.
would forward it to people.
And then the
That's a good.
And they're
The
gonna
owners-
start a planting.
yeah,
Thank you for
they've got a
catching
whole
the,
thing here that was cleared,
letter.
7,000 square feet of land that was
So
cleared.
maybe that would be another place to approach, see if we, and when we did that site walk, we had asked
Oh,
about access. In the lot next door where they illegally cleared everything?
Yeah.
Just another thought, and we had spoken to them at the site walk about maybe accessing, so maybe, I know you have that, but maybe this, because you can see where the uplands, here's the review area.
so here's the wetland boundary. This is the 100-foot review zone.
Do you have that map in?
I do.
Okay, so yeah, so there's the review, I thought, yeah.
And this is, and weren't
is
you talking
Shippey.
about this accessing from the state land?
Yes.
Yeah.
But if this
No,
is
but
all
I'm
clear
turned
cut
around.
here, here's the,
Wait, so you're kidding me? There's, all of this is review?
No, this from here to here.
That's
Is
like the
review.
majority of the parcel.
yeah,
Mhm.
Damn.
Which is why they gave it to the town, I think, because it
because
was...
it's here.
Yeah, that's not buildable. Interesting. Wow.
But see, they've cleared all of this
Yeah.
on this lot, so I was just wondering if that might, because it's
You know, they
cleared.
haven't cleared up here, though. It's interesting. They've cleared down here.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, there's sort of a triangle
Yeah.
that...
But,
Hmm.
that's interesting.
And
So
part
we're
of
gonna
that,
have to,
part of that
I mean-
is actual wetland.
Yeah.
This.
You know,
this sort
we're
of
gonna
thing
have
here.
to go before wetlands.
Oh,
then,
yeah.
Because, you know,
Maybe it could be an
We just-
administrative one, Evan?
Well, it could be. I mean,
We have a new land use person coming in, I saw that.
oh, is
Thank
that
you.
right? I knew-
Greg sent me the, that's Evan.
Yeah, send it to you too. Eric Knapp,
I
He's with,
haven't seen anything
Graham.
from you.
I don't know that it's been announced.
because we couldn't, you know,
Torrance Downs, no.
once you're over the
Did work
line,
for Gateway,
you're in,
for,
you're in the review area.
used to be an attorney, I think, with Mark Grant.
No?
Did you go to France, or is that coming up?
Conservation
Coming up
Oh.
that are permitted
on the 19th.
Okay.
that aren't regulated. Now, I don't know what their policy is.
Here's your wetland
In
expert.
relation
Yeah.
Oh, maybe
You'd
you
have to
could
talk
read the
to-
regs.
All right, we'll have to look at that some more.
But there are permitted uses that aren't even regulated uses
I
for
have two
conservation
copies, you want?
reasons.
Is that?
I said I had two
Like
copies,
managing,
do you
Oh,
want
sure.
that?
I'll take that.
Great.
That's why I bring the file with me.
Yeah.
You know, each
Oh, wait,
commission has their own
what do I have
policy.
here?
Mike, could you review that with Ann so she could?
I'll take a look.
Okay, yeah, because that would be great, because if we can make
I just
that.
don't want to alienate anybody on the Inland Wetland Commission.
Oh, we've already done that.
Chicken trail.
Yeah. History.
Again.
So,
It's almost noon, Evan, if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just zip through.
Can I just, before we go on to circle back a little bit, I'm not clear in my mind what we're doing with the herbicide policy.
I think we have an existing.
I think what we need to do is, at this point, craft some language with, that includes some references to information documenting the approval and safety evaluation of the materials we're talking about. And it sounds like to me, if we can just, as a commission, approve on an as-needed basis, based on consideration and information at hand, then at least we can go forward with, you know,
Permitting
putting it to
whatever.
a vote
Yep.
for this specific project, and we'll see what we get there.
It'd be nice to do a vote in September if we could, I would think.
Yeah, well, but the next meeting is coming right up, and I guess if Fred and Peter and Claudio are available, we could try to meet at the end of the month and put something together.
Well, Mike, would you be willing to
So,
give your...
I could, sure, but at the end of the month, I may be in Maryland for a week, so.
Yeah, that's,
and I'm away from the 19th
Yeah.
to the 9th
Oh,
of September.
well, I mean, I
It
can,
depends on the date.
yeah, I can try to draft something up and send it to people. but
I'd be curious what Snarsky uses, so if you do,
What he uses as
for,
material?
what he uses to treat the Phragmites, if
Oh.
it's something different.
I think he's using rodeo, which is a...
I know rodeo, yeah.
Like Roundup, but it's formulated for aquatic environments.
I mean, are we going to be okay if we vote to approve this, in some manner? Are we going to be okay going forward with that, or are we going to face backlash from the
Well, we
public?
haven't even talked to the neighbors, and we have to notify the neighbors.
So that seems to be an important part of this.
But I think that approving a policy of looking at herbicide use on a case-by-case basis does not require a reach out to neighbors.
Right, I think you're
I
right.
think that in and of itself is not going to be controversial.
No.
It's then your specific plan.
Yeah,
would have to
and
be-
when that is
Okay.
specifically voted on, yes, Yes, it
Okay.
definitely needs to
Kinda
include.
I think I'd do a little more detail saying that, we attach what we're approving, we have a contact abutting property. Just go into, so people just
Yeah.
don't think we're running off on our own, that there's some safeguards in there. That's the only thing I would think.
So just to wrap up so that we can move on, speaking of neighbors, the Dear Neighbor letter went out.
Oh, great, thank you.
And Greg and I were just talking about the fact that Gary Novick, one of the neighbors, had actually emailed.
I saw that.
Ago. So I'll be reaching out to him directly. And then I think everybody here, except maybe Andrea, met the interns. So, were you there? You
No.
were there. So the interns were at Midsummer, and in my review, my update from last month, at that time, their managing academic person didn't think she would be able to get nutrient analysis for our water samples, but now apparently she has. So that's something that can begin. And again, the state gave the green light for the guys to get water samples, either from Shippey Pond or from down by their training facility location. And, looking forward this fall to getting some mapping and drone imagery from the Three Rivers resource.
Oh, that'd be
That's
nice.
great.
Yeah, so there's that.
Maybe put that on our website, the drone.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the website, nice segue.
Thank you.
A letter or an article is going out in Old Line Events magazine this go round about the project, but it was only 250 words long, so I don't think it says very much, which leads me to the conclusion that we should have something on the website that discusses this project. Since the neighbors will have received their letters, I think we have a green light for that, and there's plenty of content floating around from various things.
That would be good on our website.
Is that
Put
something
together.
that interns could work with you to put together?
I think that content generation is better left with non-students at this point, and I'm as I said, I've got a lot of material I can just put together. And are you the website liaison?
Yeah.
So I will be sending that your way.
We have that easel, and we're supposed to be getting another one. Oh, actually, we have the other easel.
Yes, 2 of them.
We could maybe put that up here.
Sure.
Say Ferry Landing, and then show people what we're doing with the 2 posters.
Typos on that poster.
Well, we can maybe rearrange it so it's longer. I have the back of that beaver board. We could maybe put it together like that,
Yeah.
which might be nice.
Yeah.
Even so, yeah. So.
Good.
So,
Did you work out the payment and the finances and the justification for end of grant for the payment for the interns?
until we've actually, so as far as Community Foundation is concerned, we don't owe them anything until the end of the year, end of the grant cycle year, which should be in the spring sometime. But in terms of using the monies that we were awarded, I don't know how to access that, but it would be part of anything that we put in that we wanted to be paid for from, when we put it into finance, we have to say that that's where it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's not.
Okay, so just so your requests match your readout at the end of the grant period.
Well, yeah, so the most important thing right now, in my mind, in terms of the monies, is to get these kids paid because they have in fact been putting in hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where we left off with the employment letter that I drafted.
I don't know. I didn't see. Did you send that?
Yeah.
Is this the one from Tim?
It has to go out from Tim, okay.
So would you mind sending, I was away last week, would you mind sending it to me? So.
Yeah. Evan, you didn't see it?
I haven't seen it. I haven't been getting, I don't know what's happened. Did you send an email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a terrible
Okay,
time.
all right.
So, send it to me, and then, and I'm here this week, so I can,
Okay.
and get it
Yeah.
out.
I mean, I asked Amy for a template or a model, and it's a no-go, so I just winged it.
That's fine. It's something that you send, we'll send it to Tim. Tim will send it back to us, say, what's this? And we'll explain, and then, but
Right.
hopefully we'll shortchange it also, it'll get out.
Right, it would be great to get it out this week.
And what did Amy require from them? They filled out that form.
Right.
Yeah, that's what all of our.
I'm under the impression that it was dropped off Friday, so. she
Okay.
has the form, she just needs Tim's letter, and then.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the next step is for actually generating a check for them, but.
It'll be a little. Well, just send us a letter, and I'll be home tomorrow,
Okay.
or tomorrow afternoon, so.
Okay.
And we'll get it out. So that's great. Anybody have any questions for Ann or thoughts?
No, but I want to congratulate you on all the work you
Yeah,
put into this.
wonderful.
I
Thank
just have a
you.
quick question on the Phragmites project. I'd just like to know what we'd have to invest to follow up to keep the Phragmites out over time and be aware of what that would entail.
Right. Yeah, and in fact, if, I could probably reach out to All Habitat and ask them for,
Because you wouldn't want that investment to go to waste.
Right. Yep.
That's why it might be a good idea if we went to the Board of Finance next, winter for a presentation, is if we had something on the ground, started.
Yeah.
And that would be the second phase of it, and share that and show, Snarsky's estimate, the other estimates, and then, ask for that, and maybe say that we're applying for a grant, and see if they would be willing to give us a bump up to pay for some of that. Because they're always, they always say, oh, we're happy to what you do and everything like that. They just need to know, and I think we need to do our due diligence, have a couple of estimates, say we started the project, you funded it this term for, X dollars, and we have the backing of the neighbor. I think that's the type of stuff that makes at least them willing to give us some money.
Okay. That's good. Great, thank you.
Thank you
thank you,
so
Jan.
much, Ann, and really have spearheaded it all.
Thanks. Appreciate everybody's assistance. Great.
Okay, moving along to number 3 on the agenda, Colic Family Open Space Equestrian Use. Update by Amanda.
Evan and I sent the memo and the lease to the selectmen, and we haven't heard anything, so that's the update.
We made, as an advisory board, we made known our advice through the letter to the selectmen. Up to the selectmen to decide whether this was something they wanted to do or not. And we haven't been to the planning commission because we're waiting for no point in going to the planning commission if the selectmen say, forget this.
Right.
So the ultimate suggestion was not to extend riding rights,
No.
No.
right? Or was it
The opposite.
to?
No, it was
It was the opposite. Okay, well, I wasn't sure
Okay.
because there was a split. and it was-
Well,
then-
it passed based on 2 contingencies. And one of the contingencies we removed, if they were going to change any type of ownership, they assigned the lease, they had to get our permission.
X out all the LLCs.
Yeah, and then the other thing was the issue on liability. And as an advisory board, it really wasn't up to us to make the decision what the town should do. We felt the selectmen should. So that's why we said in our memo, quoted Rich Cody, the open space attorney, and shared with him, we voted for it, we would like to have it, but the liability issue, it was up to the Board of Selectmen to decide on that before we continue.
And so now it's in the
It's in the selectmen's hands.
hands
Yeah.
to make a decision
On whether
On liability.
the town should accept the potential risk of liability for equestrian use.
Okay. And that brings us to the executive session. So
Do you want a motion to go into?
I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Could we have a reason for?
Yeah, this is a discussion for land acquisition, which under the statute of FOI statute.
As long as that's reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I made the motion at 12:09.
Second.
And second?
And the recording needs to go off too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And everyone needs to leave.
Thank you very much.
Off the record,